Okay, you're live.
Good afternoon and welcome to this live virtual launch from sunny Belize, which actually just 39th Independence Anniversary on Monday. So congratulations are still in order. My name is Anne-Marie Williams. I'm the former and the first executive director of the National Women's Commission in Belize, having served for 10 years. I now sit as the regional gender specialist at the CARICOM Secretariat, which is headquartered in Georgetown, Guyana. Today, we're launching the Canada Women's Voice in Leadership Caribbean project in Belize. And we're also using the opportunity to take a cursory look at the state of gender equality and women's empowerment and empowerment of women and girls. Before we begin, I want to let you know that the objective for today's event is really to generate an exchange of ideas and views on significant issues around gender equality, including new and emerging issues in Belize. And we will use this as a point of convergence to truly support and to truly learn what it's like to support women's rights organizations. This afternoon in our midst, I'd like to welcome all those of you who've joined us on the Facebook page, Canada in Belize, those of you joining us from all over the world. Also, a big welcome to His Excellency George LaRoche, Ambassador, that's Guatemala's Ambassador to Belize, and Canada's Honorary Consul in Belize, Lim Yong, and all those other special ladies and gentlemen joining us virtually. In welcoming you this afternoon, I bring to you a few words for you to ponder. Globally, this is a banner year for gender equality and women's empowerment. This year's celebration is being observed within the wider context of significant global commemorations. Key among them happens to be the 25th anniversary of the adoption of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, 5 years of implementing the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and 20 years of Security Council Resolution 1325, which addresses the differential impacts of conflict and war on women and girls, and recognizes the critical role that women continue to play in security and peace-building efforts. 20 years after the Fourth World Conference on Women, though, women are yet to live in an equal world, free from all forms of violence, with access to decent work, social protection, and with their leadership skills, where it is fully valued and utilized amidst the widening income gap, growing economic inequality. The unfortunate reality is that 25 years later, no country or region has achieved gender equality. And given our new realities, the public health crisis as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and its socioeconomic impacts, which disproportionately affect women, such as the rising incidence of gender-based violence, the undue burden of care, increased poverty, unemployment, and underemployment, along with food insecurity, may just cause a pushback on gender equality commitments. Gender justice is a human right for every person, including justice for women and girls. Equitable justice for all genders is tantamount to reducing poverty and ensuring sustainable development. Yet, all too often, half of the world's population suffer from multiple and intersecting forms of discrimination, and that denies them basic human rights. Gender justice can be thought of as the application of respectful, ethical, and equitable social decision-making to positively impact all genders. By this definition, it is the ultimate inclusionary mechanism for a just society. Violence against women and girls is one of the most widespread and persistent and devastating forms of human rights violation in the world, though. And the region is no exception, which has some of the highest rates. It is a global scourge cutting across all generations, nationalities, and communities, regardless of one's race, color, creed, ethnicity, or gender and/or disability. It is a major obstacle to the fulfillment of women's and girls' human rights and to the achievement of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, especially Goal 5, which speaks to gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls, and is both a driver and an enabler of the other 16 goals. A clear picture of violence happened to emerge when the region launched a series of 5 prevalent surveys as part of women's health and life expectancy surveys. They were done between 2018 and 2020. Grenada, Guyana, Jamaica, Suriname, and Trinidad and Tobago can boast of these surveys. The global average indicates that 1 in 3 women is affected by some form of violence during her lifetime, while in Grenada, Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, and Suriname are in line with the global average. In Guyana, it's 1 in 2 women between the age of 15 to 64. And 50% of those women who were surveyed in 2019 did not tell anyone, not even the police, of their abuse. Globally, 3/4 of all parliamentarians are still men. Women and girls suffer disproportionately from missed opportunities to advance their education and improve their earning power as a result of their unpaid care work in the household. Working men and women alike across the Caribbean, they want equality in the workplace. Women who work are particularly concerned about their economic stability, their right to sexual and reproductive health, a workplace that is free of sexual harassment, their right to affordable childcare and family or paternity leave, and where their partners can help in the home as part of their shared responsibility. All these issues have been laid bare by the COVID-19 pandemic and will take political will to ensure that robust policies and programs are instituted in order to reach the furthest behind first. Finally, CARICOM's work is guided by the Caribbean Community Strategic Plan, which speaks to building social resilience tied to equitable human and social development. However, as we move forward with a new strategic plan, an important component of that resilience is the mainstreaming of gender in the region through the first CARICOM Regional Gender Equality Strategy, titled Stepping It Up, a strategy to achieve gender equality in the region. The document seeks to address these issues directly, is aligned with the strategic priorities of the community, and addresses the gaps as a way of informing better outcomes for its members, more than half of whom are women and youth. This CARICOM Gender Equality Strategy has 7 thematic pillars that are aligned with international commitments and frameworks, including CEDAW, the Beijing Platform for Action, and the SDGs. And these priority pillars are gender equality, freedom from violence, economic empowerment, good governance, access to health services, inclusive quality education, and sustainable natural resource management. The strategy also supports gender mainstreaming as a vital tool for achieving gender equality. And with that, I really want to welcome you to this afternoon's presentation. What we'll do, we'll have a panel discussion, and each of the panelists will have 5 minutes to speak on their particular topic. And that will give way for a short discussion, after which we'll come to an end. So I want to impress upon everyone to be mindful of the time. You have all of 5 minutes to make sure that you get your points across so that we could have a lively discussion afterwards. So I will be introducing you all, and afterwards we will begin. So our first panelist is a very important woman in our midst, Rita Reditis Renaud. She's the High Commissioner of Canada to Belize and Resident Ambassador of Canada to Guatemala. She's been in the position since October 2018. She has previously served Canada in Moscow and Mexico City and has held numerous positions in Ottawa, with Global Affairs Canada and other Canadian government departments. She's a champion for gender equality, and in the last few years has advocated especially for the rights of Indigenous women and has chaired the Gender Equality Donor Coordination Group in Guatemala. Give a round of applause for Rita Riditis Renaud. Our next panelist is Kim Simplis Barrow, and she's a special envoy for women and children right here in Belize, and she's a strong advocate for the rights of women and children, Ms. Kim Simplis Barrow. Cynthia Williams is up next, and she's the Executive Director of the National Women's Commission in Belize. Amina Doherty is the Project Director of Women's Voice and Leadership of the Canadian organization Equality Fund. And then we have Carrie Jo Ford Lynn, the Director of the Austro-Lesbian Foundation for Justice, and she's based in New York. We have our panelists joining us from New York City, Guatemala City, Antigua and Barbuda, and of course, in Belize. So ladies, panelists, I want you all to begin. It's 5 minutes. I'll be clocking you all. And let me just say that the Canadian High Commissioner will be talking about the commitment, Canada's commitment to gender equality. At the same time, she will be launching the Women's Voice and Leadership Canada project. Ms. Kim Simplis Barrow, she will be speaking about gender equality and women's empowerment from Belize's perspective. Amina Doherty will be talking about empowering Indigenous and other vulnerable Belizean women and girls. Carrie Jo Lynn will zero in on leadership and voices of women from the LGBTQ community in Belize. And Cynthia Williams will be giving us Belize's commitment to gender equality, talking about its advances and the challenges that Belize has been experienced. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, ladies and gentlemen, right? No, we have two. Ladies and gentlemen, so you can go ahead, starting with the High Commissioner.
Yes, well, good afternoon, and it's certainly a pleasure to be part of this panel. I welcome all of you to this discussion today. And I'm very excited to be launching an exciting gender equality initiative in the Caribbean that includes Belize as a priority country. I will get to the details in a minute, but I first want to talk about why gender equality is important and why we work to ensure women and men have equal opportunity to realize their full human rights and potential to contribute to national, political, economic, social, and cultural development, and to benefit from the results. Can you hear me? Yes. Canada strongly believes that to eliminate poverty, it is necessary to ensure participation of every member of society in the democratic and economic life of the country. Great advances have been made in the empowerment of women and girls, but enormous challenges remain. Canada has a long history of supporting the equality of women and girls in Belize. We have been working with established partners to develop training programs that link women and youth, educational institutions, and employers, and help to strengthen the governance of national climate change planning, making it more inclusive of women. We have also supported through our Canada Fund for Local Initiatives, the building of capacities of young Belizean women and girls, and raising awareness about the need to put an end to the violence against women. Gender equality is central to Canada's feminist foreign policy, and it is fully integrated into Canada's development assistance. This includes responding directly to the needs of women and local women's organizations in the region. For too many years, there has been insufficient strategic engagement and resources specifically targeted to strengthening women's groups to do their own work. Many women's rights organizations have made significant contributions through the commitment and passion of women volunteering their time and expertise to make lives better in spite of structural and systemic barriers. We want to support their efforts to make a real impact and to create equality for all. Today, I am very pleased and honored and excited to launch the Women's Voice in Leadership Caribbean Regional Project with its specific programming for Belize. This is part of a larger $150 million program, Women's Voice in Leadership program, that Global Affairs Canada is implementing globally. In the Caribbean, 27 women's rights organizations from 8 CARICOM countries will benefit from a total of 4.5 million Canadian dollars. 4 of those organizations, I'm pleased to say, are Belizean. Women's Voice in Leadership will work with women's rights organizations, particularly those representing vulnerable and marginalized women and girls in Belize. We welcome this partnership and look forward to contribute to building the capacity of grassroots, Indigenous, and LGBTI rights organizations. The project will also work to increase the effectiveness of regional networks and alliances to affect policy, legal, and social change in the Caribbean region. The final selection of multi-year local partner grantees was completed in July 2020 by implementing partners, the Equality Fund in partnership with the Australia Foundation and advisors from across the Caribbean through a public call for proposals. All organizations working at the intersections of a range of issues affecting the Caribbean region, including gender-based violence, economic justice, empowerment of women, feminist leadership, LGBTI rights, among others. So I would like to congratulate the 4 organizations selected for Belize. We look forward to a great partnership over the next 3 years. And these organizations are Productive Organization for Women in Action, based in, I wonder if I get this right, Dangriga. This organization.
Well done, very good, very good.
Thank you. This organization advocates for the rights of women and girls to help them live free from violence, exploitation, and abuse. Congratulations as well to the Toledo Maya Women's Council, one of the first organizations established in Belize to create a safe space for Indigenous women and girls and enable their participation, representation, in leadership in public policy and decision-making spaces, mostly at the community level. Congratulations as well to the Promoting Empowerment Through Awareness for Lesbian and Bisexual Women, which has a mission to achieve social, economic, and gender justice for all women in Belize, with a particular focus on lesbian and bisexual women. Next, our circle, congratulations, that works to create a safe, supportive space for LGBT couples, parents, and families in Belize. And the Caribbean Regional Group, Cara Flags, will have a footprint in Belize. The group has provided leadership in articulating an Indigenous LGBTQ voice and agenda for the Caribbean regionally and in support of local groups. Canada remains firmly committed to supporting Belize in its pursuit of gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls. We look forward to a future in which women and girls all across the Caribbean have an increased presence and voice in the framing of trajectories of their lives and the development of their societies. Thank you very much. It's such an honor to be here today.
Thank you very much, High Commissioner Redoitis Renaud, for those words. Next, our next panelist is Ms. Kim Simplis Barrow.
Hey, good afternoon. Good afternoon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. As the spouse of the Prime Minister of Belize and the Special Envoy for Women and Children, it is a pleasure and an honor to be able to join you today. I hope that you all are staying safe and in good health during these challenging times. I would like to thank Her Excellency Mrs. Rita Ibales Renaud. I hope I didn't butcher your name. The High Commissioner of Canada to Belize, for inviting me to provide brief remarks on the topic gender equality and women's empowerment in Belizean perspective. It is well known that Women's empowerment is a critical aspect of achieving gender equality. In fact, I believe that we cannot have one without the other. When we speak about empowerment, we are referring to the need to increase a woman's sense of self-worth, her decision-making power, her access to opportunities and resources, her influence and control over her own life, and her ability and freedom to effect change. Countless studies, reports, and good practices all over the world have provided solid evidence for the irrefutable fact that gender equality is an imperative to sustainable national development. We know that women and girls thrive within enabling environments that guarantee their human rights. And when women and girls do well, the entire society benefits. We also know that the structural and systematic barriers that prevent women and girls from accessing their rights are underpinned by traditional patriarchal values that sustain gender inequality. It stands to reason then that for our societies to move forward, everyone must be engaged. The negative effects of this COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted the need to accelerate and redouble our efforts as the global experience of sharp economic downturns, increasing incidents of gender-based violence, increased care responsibilities for women threaten to erode the gains we have made towards realizing gender equality. As Belize's special envoy, empowering women and promoting gender equality has been one of my top priorities. And through my office, I've undertaken several projects and initiatives to empower women and girls and advance gender equality in Belize. In 2013, my office successfully lobbied for effective gender-neutral legislation, which led to revisions and amendments to the criminal code, holding perpetrators and enablers of human trafficking and commercial sexual exploitation to greater account. We also launched a 20,000-strong women's empowerment campaign in 2015 to rally women and shed light on the many issues that needed urgent attention. The first 20,000-strong women's empowerment rally was held under the theme, Imagine a Belize Without Women. This was meticulously chosen to recognize and appreciate women for their ability, influence, and significance. As part of Belize's commemoration of International Women's Month, the 20,000-strong Women's Empowerment Rally has become a biennial event. Furthermore, I have dedicated my office to the planning and execution of the launch of 16 Days of Activism. Through this event, we have provided survivors of violence with a platform to share their stories in hope that they would empower others to seek help. While I am pleased to say that we have made great strides, there is no negating that there is still a lot of work to be done. Women still suffer from lack of access to decent work, gender wage gaps, and the face of occupational segregation. They are often denied access to basic education and healthcare, and are victims of gender-based violence and discrimination. Still, I am not disheartened, but optimistic. Over the years, I have come to realize the power of collaborative action, and it is encouraging to know that countries such as Canada are also aware of the fruits that can be born when countries work together towards a common goal. In this case, the goal is to improve performance, management, and sustainability of women's rights organizations, particularly those representing vulnerable and marginalized women and girls. In closing, I believe I speak for the people of Belize when I say that we are looking forward to continued relationship with Canada and other partners so that we can continue to make greater and more sustainable progress for women and girls.
Thank you very much also. And our next speaker is Cynthia Williams, the Executive Director of the National Women's Commission. She will remind us about Belize's commitment to gender equality, the advances made, and some of the challenges. Cynthia?
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you very much for the invitation. The National Women's Commission, as the policy advisory body to government, we always are very happy to participate in spaces that build partnership and strengthen collaborative spaces that support and enhance the work that government undertakes towards gender equality and the elimination of gender-based violence. So I'll try to really be very concise within the 5 minutes allocated, although it will definitely not be enough, looking at the advances that as a country we have undertaken and looking at the most recent, especially efforts of Belize. So I was asked to talk about advances and challenges. And I think one of the things that really, like many countries, Belize faces is the need for us to really work in a multi-sectoral coordinated approach that guides national policy decisions. And so Belize was, in looking at that particular challenge, we underwent the strengthening of national coordination entities such as the National Gender-Based Violence Committee, which included issues of gender within its mandate and its scope of work. Added to that, because we know the importance of building a stronger connection and linkages between community engagement and public policy, the other processes that were involved as part of these efforts were also the development of the district gender and gender-based violence committees in an effort to build those linkages between the local level, local context, and national policy decisions. And so Belize was very happy to be able to engage our different partners who provide services both in the government sector and in the non-government sector by bringing them together on a platform that on a continuous basis assesses and looks at the gaps and challenges that persons facing gender-based violence face in Belize. And so we have ministries such as education, health, our own Ministry of Human Development, as well as partners from our community-based organizations, non-governmental organizations, international entities as well, to be part of this platform that looks at the national response and how we can enhance it and strengthen it. The other issue, the other aspect in which Belize has really made a lot of advances is in approving several national gender-based violence action plans, 3 in total, and 2 national gender policies, which are currently being implemented. And so all these different efforts look at building and strengthening this multi-sectoral approach, because we know one of the other challenges that often happen is silo implementation. And this may be due to a lot of issues such as financing constraints. And in some cases, some of these entities even have limited capacity to be able to engage other partners, issues of advocacy as well. And so from a coordinating entity, the National Women's Commission then undergoes and believes that in coming together, we would be able to pool our resources and creatively address the issues that our country faces. And in terms of additional advances, I think one of the areas in which the country felt it needed to really look at is really delineating and the role and responsibilities of the gender machinery in Belize. We have one area that looks at the policy development issue and the coordination, which now falls under the National Women's Commission, and the acts and providing concrete services to victims and survivors of gender-based violence, which is now provided strictly by the Women's Department. In addition, the restructuring of the Women's Department to include support to families is another way of advancing the work, so that then people would be able to access the work of the department, not only in terms of facing violence, but also issues that family face. And for that, we are very happy to be able to then provide a more holistic package for families whenever they access the Ministry of Human Development. One way that government has also advanced quite a lot is through our legislative and policy framework. Over the years, we've been able to amend and change legislation to increase protection for victims and survivors. Some of these particular changes include the Criminal Code, the Domestic Violence Act, CSEC, human trafficking laws, but also in terms of the policy framework is the development of domestic violence protocols for police officers, as well as sexual violence protocols. And even as we go on, we continue addressing the different gaps that still exist, and we are in the process of revising and strengthening those two particular protocols as well. One of the areas that I think Belize has also made advances is our continued public awareness and education campaigns that we have taken for many years, with particular messages addressing areas such as men's engagement, community and individual responsibility, perpetrator accountability, and of course, looking at the state responsibility. And through these avenues, we hope we are challenging and we are bringing forth the need to challenge patriarchal attitudes that are embedded within our society, because we could recognize that that is the major challenge that affects the impact of the strategies and interventions that Belize has set forth. And so it's important for us to be able to address it holistically, engage partners at different levels, not only at the policy level, but also at the local level, community level, and ensure that everybody feels included and that they are bringing in also their own perspective so that we do not leave anyone behind. So in terms of those very key advances, I think Belize really stands as a leader in the Caribbean, even though there are other issues such as the issue of data collection. We recognize and we strive to work forward towards strengthening them. For example, one of the current issues that we are working on is the development of a national platform that provides evidence-based opportunities for policy development and decision for government. So in all, very briefly, those are some of the areas where we've seen advances and try to really address some of the challenges that many countries also face, similarly to Belize.
Thank you, Cynthia. I was saying, I hope she wraps up. I hope she wraps up because I don't want to cut her. She took more than 5 minutes, right? But thank you very much for that. The next speaker is Amina Doherty, and she will be talking about how to empower Indigenous women and other vulnerable women and girls in Belize. Amina?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. And I'm based in Antigua and Barbuda, I'm very, very proud to say. So I am very excited to be joining this space as the director of the Women's Voice in Leadership Project, which, as you know, is supported by Global Affairs Canada in partnership with Estrella. This is a project that has been long in the waiting, and we are really excited to be announcing partners. We have, 27 partners from around the region. And I think what's really special is we have a few of those partners here on the call who will be able to not only introduce themselves, but introduce the nature of the work that they do. And so they have the voices to speak themselves of, what they're doing in Indigenous communities and rural communities and so on. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from them as well. I'll just say a few words just in regard to the Women's Voice in Leadership Project itself. As an initiative that really centers a feminist funding approach, and what that means to us is supporting organizations with flexible funding, with core funding. We really trust women's rights organizations and LGBTIQ groups to do the work, and we want to ensure that that the resources are in the hands of the folks that are doing the work on the ground. I think what's really special about the funding that we'll be providing to these groups in community over the next 3 years, and hopefully much longer than that, is that the work that the groups are doing is cross-movement work. So we're working broadly with many mainstream women's rights organizations across the region, as well as a number of LGBTIQ groups in the region, and that's really exciting. They have informed the process. So we had a convening last year in Antigua where we brought together, I see Ifasina on the call, we brought together a number of different people to tell us, what should a feminist funding model look like for the Caribbean. And we used all of the feedback that we got from that process to really design and shape the WVL program. I think what's really exciting is more than just getting this money out of the door and into the hands of women's rights organizations. is that we have an opportunity here to really center Caribbean feminist movement building and organizing. We have an opportunity to build those relationships and strengthen those connections through networking, alliance building. We have the opportunity to build capacity at a regional level as well as in local communities. And you know, the range of organizations that are being supported is amazing. It's diverse. We have young feminist groups using digital activism, to groups like Power that, you know, are doing such amazing work, particularly with young women and girls in community. We have folks from our circle on this call right now. So I'm not going to take all of my time. I'm actually going to cede to Carrie Jo from the Estrella Foundation to be able to share a little bit, and then we will actually pass it over to our partners to say a word or two about the work that they do. So Carrie Jo, over to you.
Thanks, Amina. I'm actually based in Jamaica, home right now, transplanted from where I usually live, which is Washington, D.C. It just makes so much sense to be home in these times. And we're so excited to partner with the Equality Fund on the Women's Voice and Leadership Program. As is a sign of the times, homeschooling is happening in the background. So if you're hearing noise, that's what's happening. You know, we're excited to be in partnership, not just with the Equality Fund on Women's Voice and Leadership, but with all these amazing partners in Belize, in the Caribbean, because of the phenomenal work that they've been doing with so few resources. One of the things about how we fund is that we provide core support because it is important for us to fund each of these organizations based on the priorities that they have. We want to make sure that the way that these organizations feel that they need to be moving, self-determination, really important to us in the region, is a principle by which we also stand by and align. You know, our WVL Caribbean grantee partners, they include emerging as well as established organizations that operate in rural areas and also urban areas. And as you know, Amina mentioned, they're intersectional. They represent young women, Indigenous women, sex workers, the LGBTQI communities, and they work at the intersections of gender-based violence, economic justice, feminist leadership, climate change, and so many more. You know, speaking from the perspective of the LGBTQI work, you know, our circle is a partner of ours, and the work that they are doing is just phenomenal. What is really exciting about that work is that they're youth-led organizing. They use strategic advocacy and communications and provide such critical support for LGBT families that includes psychosocial support. It's one of the things that we don't talk about. We don't talk about the impact of doing this work in such harsh conditions on the people doing it. Oftentimes they're volunteers. And when we think about the context of COVID-19 and the fact that it's devastated livelihoods across the region, across the world, it's increased social isolation and anxiety, having a community and having support systems like Our Circle, like Power, you know, are so critical to just well-being. And so similar to Amina, I want to just make sure that I am handing over the mic so that our partners can speak. They have such a wealth of experience and insights and knowledge to share with us. In addition to the partners we have on the call today, other WVL grantee partners include Petal Belize, the Toledo Maya Women's Council, and speaking today will be Our Circle, and I'll hand over to them and then to Power. So I see Our Circle is on the call. Each of you will have 1 to 2 minutes. Speak. Oh, they're gone. I'm sure they're. Oh, there you are. Hi. There you are.
Thank you very much, Lenny. I will hand over to them, and thank you very much, Carrie Jolene and Amina, for that. What we'll do now, we'll do a little discussion. We don't have a lot of time. We have like about 18 minutes. And so we want to be conscientious and we discuss a bit so that each of us can get our ideas out and do a really nice informative piece for those listening via Facebook. Okay, so I want to start with the first question for the High Commissioner. Is she there? High Commissioner?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. I want to ask you, first of all, I want to say congratulations for actually making a reemergence into the region, because early days, Canada did a lot with Belize in terms of gender equality, and I'm glad that you're back. But in terms of the Women's Voice and Leadership Caribbean Project, how is this different? What are you planning to achieve in terms of the long term where gender equality is concerned? How do you see it?
The long term. You know, when I look at gender equality, well, first of all, thank you very much for the question. I think that, you know, what's really key when we're looking at, in a lot of ways, what kind of program that we need to have in a particular region, I think that it's really important to, first of all, listen listen basically to those that are, very much to listen to what we're hearing from, from Belizeans, from different organizations. And I think that that's extremely key, because I think that it's important in developing anything that you're not going to do it in some sort of a vacuum. I also think that when we are looking at these programming, sometimes you have to take probably a little bit more of an incremental approach, and that you have to realize that you may not necessarily achieve everything that you want right away. And I even look at Canada's, if you will, the way in which we have our progress on gender issues is that, this has been done over a large period of time with different kinds of efforts. And so I think it's important to really try to do that. And so I think, though, again, going back to, I guess, the theme about, I think it's most important to ask Belizeans. I think what I'd like to do is to invite POA and the Circle to maybe provide their answer to that particular question.
Thank you. I will do that certainly. I see Derlisha from our Circle. So tell us a bit about what are some of the pressing issues currently facing your organization, and perhaps if you can elaborate a bit about that in terms of the region, and how are you planning to treat in terms of activism and the feminist movement where your organization is concerned. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you. Afternoon, everybody. Well, for us at our Circle, for those who don't know our organization, what we work towards is creating the lived and legal inclusion of LGBT families in Belize. And that actually captures a very diverse definition of what family is. Looking at having adults who are willing and able to care for each other and care for children or prospective children that they would have in their relationships. For us, our pressing issue is definitely the lack of legal recognition for relationships. It has been very difficult for us to be able to provide certain aspects of safety and security in regards to our relationships and in regards to our families, particularly looking at several aspects of family law, even when it comes to estate, when it comes to protection in regards to intimate partner violence. It's been very difficult for the LGBT community in Belize to channel those systems, which of course already exists. We've done well as a country to protect our people. However, the lack of acknowledgement of LGBT families, family structures, and a lot of different diverse family structures makes it harder for us to navigate those systems. Regionally, there's still not much work being done in regards to LGBT's families. It's just now that we are reclaiming the term family for ourselves and making sure that we are able to be integrated within these systems which provide us the safety that we deserve as human beings. So for us, the biggest thing would be the lack of legal recognition, both locally and regionally, in regards to the work that we do.
So a quick follow-up, and then I'll hear from POA. What are some of the plans in terms of legislation that our Circle may have?
Well, our big one is, and we're actually working with we've made recommendation with the National Women's Commission and the Families and Children's Act policy and legislative team in regards to widening the definition of family. So it can be all encompassing, and it can be a terminology that evolves with the time. As well as looking to definitions such as parental responsibilities or parents as opposed to mother, father, and looking at some sense of acknowledging us. A lot of people think when we speak about LGBT family rights that we're going towards the end all of marriage. But we've also seen in America where there is same-sex marriage does not mean that you still have the rights that you're supposed to be given to. So we're looking at getting the rights that we deserve as individuals who have a right to a family, the right to create a family, and the right to create a family that they can protect. So for us, we're looking towards definitely some way of widening the concept and legal definition of family, looking to how we can be included in terminologies such as spouse, or in integrating the term partner to be able to protect the people we love, whether it's our partner or our children. So that's pretty much what we're working on at this point. For the past, I think it's been 18 months prior to the COVID-19 pandemic impacting us here in Belize. We were also working with the Statistical Institute of Belize so that we would be able to get some form of same-sex national data from the SIB. The Census 2020 that was supposed to be rolled out was going to give us the option to claim the person living in our household as partner. So we actually moved a bit further in regards to that. However, COVID took us back 10 steps.
Because next year the census will happen. So time is going, so I want to hear from somebody else. Thank you very much. Thank you for that intervention. So if you could, is Michelle on the call from Power, or who is from Power? Oh, Efesina who's there from Power?
Yes, both of us. We are here.
All right, okay.
Three of us are here from Power.
Okay. So I want to ask a question so you could get a bit of, we spoke the other day in terms of some of the stereotypes that continue to be perpetuated and things like that. It's 25 years of Beijing, as you know. Our history, our culture have contributed to stereotypes and everything that's sometimes wrong with how we live. But do you really see things changing? And what are some of the inequalities you hope to see change in the near future?
Well, first of all, I really appreciate what our circle said and their point of advocacy as it relates for inclusion and respect for everybody as human beings. And at Power, I think that is one of our major team as well, to ensure that everyone is protected and respected as a human. And while we look at women in relation and girls in relation of a patriarchal system, in relation of years of subjugation and oppression, and we see that the gains we have made sometimes turn around as a backlash. And we see some of that happening where we have quite some misogynistic views, very violent towards women, and very controlling and subjugating. So the idea of then pushing forward in terms of ensuring that we reclaim our spaces and looking at feminist movements that we have a proud history of in the Caribbean, as you know, Miss Anne-Marie, and you being one of the persons that, who continue to champion that. And just this Saturday, I am proud to say, with the support of the WVL funding, we were able to launch our transformational feminist leadership workshops, where we're able to take these seemingly fancy words and bring it to our community women with our masks and our social distancing, And it was such a powerful, powerful day we had. I am still on a high, being so proud that, you know, our people are able to fully grasp and understand and articulate in their own way, in their own stories. You should have heard the stories about transgender. I just said, write a story. And the story we got was about the duck, the drake, taking care of the eggs, and how this guy came and said, look at that duck that was punk. You guys understand what I am saying, right? But that brought a whole level of understanding and discourse for us to understand what it means to protect those that are most vulnerable and to protect those that are most in need. And let me say, the person who brought the story have some beautiful ducklings, the duck hatch. We have quite a bit of duck, and we were naming them. But I'm just showing you how transformative and how powerful the work is just in our stories.
Efesina, you want to zero in on something quickly? And I mean quickly, sorry.
Well, I mean, how about that? I mean, this is we are so grateful and appreciative of the opportunity to be able to do the work and have the support consistently. That has always been our concern, is consistently have the support to do this work, because we know it's important, very valuable work that we're doing. And most of the time we've had to do it at our own personal sacrifice. So finally, we get this kind of support, and it's a little ease for us, and we can just feel really rewarded that, okay, now we have the support to keep on doing it, to keep our doors open for the girls to be able to come, the women be able to come. We can continue to do our very rich work, and we don't have to be stressing like, well, how we're going to afford to keep this up.
Well, thank you very much, Michelle and Efesina. And yes, I want to say this kind of work sometimes can be thankless, but it's very costly and it's very necessary. And oftentimes people don't realize it, but we're privileged to do this kind of work because it's very much needed. Okay, thank you. I want Amira Tewel now from the Toledo Maya Women's Council. I see her in line. Amira, talk to us about some of the challenges you're experiencing with trying to promote and encourage Indigenous women into gender equality.
Hi, everyone. In response to your question, there are several inequalities that we see in rural communities. One is a recognition to voice your opinion, the right to equally participate in discussions, especially when it relates to your well-being, to your safety. When it comes to politics, you know, we are part of it, but only when it comes to campaign. If you are to share your opinion on how you would like to see campaigning be done, you know, the opinion is disregarded simply because it's not the man's way of doing things. So that's a very huge inequality there. When it comes to our work with girls, we find that it's challenging simply because the level of machismo in rural Toledo is still very high. And while we are focused on encouraging girls to stay in school, a lot of the head of households, which still is not a shared role, you know, deter us from our objective, because the fathers and other men in the community refuse to see education as an equal right for girls. It's
so how do you see the Women's Voice and Leadership Fund helping you to educate and to make those same girls, and by extension their parents, very much aware of their space, their opportunity to express themselves?
our hope with this project is to create more awareness, to emphasize the rights of the girl, to do a lot of awareness with community leaders, mothers especially, and to start empowerment from girls up. We have a lot of capacity training sessions that focus only on men. When we look at community health workers, they're not always included. Um, we still have some communities that have men community health workers, and that kind of create a divide. So when it comes to accessing our resources, health, education, writing, participating in politics, we don't have the proper representation. So our objective with this project is to minimize and to bring out girls from the girl up, and not specifically focusing on women, but more girls.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Is there somebody from Petal?
I don't believe so. I think we can move on.
There's nobody else from, okay. Okay, so then let's open the discussion then and hear a little bit about what are some of the issues we're working on and some of the issues we're facing. Cynthia, you want to talk to us a little bit about how you see Belize's history and culture shaping some of the stereotypical style of doing things, and is it really changing? And if you feel it's changing, can you cite a couple examples for us?
Yes, good afternoon again. Honestly, Anne-Marie, I think it really varies. And I think this experience with COVID-19 is really demonstrating how things change, but yet remain the same. I think one of the issues also that we find is that a lot of times people really don't come forward and share what are their real life experiences in terms of access of services, being able to share their experiences that they have within the education sector. And one of the things that I think often we feel challenged or that we need to ensure that it doesn't happen is the generalization of issues, even within our own country. You know, we are multi-ethnic. When we look at issues that Corozal faces versus issues that Toledo faces, Cayo and Belize, while some of them may be similar, they each have their nuances. And I think we need to ensure that when we implement or any strategy, develop any policy, we ensure that those nuances are included within these particular interventions. And I really liked Amira's and Michelle's and even our circle's interventions, because really and truly it demonstrates the complexity of the work that is required to address gender equality. Because a lot of times, you know, when we look at the different cultures, those embedded patriarchal values manifestate themselves in a variety of ways. But at the end of the day, women and girls are the ones who end up getting the shorter end of the straw. And so it's important for us to recognize that, yes, there has been advances when you look at the legislative framework. We still have a long way to go. And one of the things that, from what I hear in terms of this particular agenda and some of the work that we have been doing over the last 2 or 3 years, is really to build the capacity and hopefully engage civil society, smaller organizations who have that contact with those communities, who would be able to then provide the information that is required to guide policy. And I think that is something that we are aiming at through the work of the district committees as much as possible. A system will never be perfect, but at least to be able to engage community organizations such as POA, such as our circles, such as our Toledo Women's Council, to be able for them to tell us, this is how these policies affect our lives. These are the things that we need to change. Because we're dealing with behavioral changes, we know that that will take a long time, but we're working towards that.
Okay, I have to cut you, but thank you very much for that answer because I'm being signaled it's a minute left on the call, so I have to wrap up. I really want to thank all the members of the panel, High Commissioner Rita Ruditis. I'd like to thank Kim Simplice Barrow, Special Envoy for Women and Children, Cynthia, yourself as head of the National Women's Commission, Amina Doherty as Project Director for Women's Voice and Leadership of the Canadian Organization Equality Fund, Carrie Jo Ford Lynn, that is the Director of the Australia Lesbian Foundation for Justice based in New York. This afternoon, we were treated to a very short panel discussion on gender equality and empowerment of women and girls. We also meet the 4 partner organizations that the Women's Voice and Leadership Caribbean Fund is working with. We want to thank all of you who have been involved, and particularly the High Commissioner for launching the Canada Women's Voice and Leadership Caribbean Project in Belize. You've been a wonderful audience. I'd like to take the opportunity to wish you all the best and continue as we move forward with 25 more years of gender equality and women's empowerment in Belize and the region. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Very good discussion. I learned a lot.
Thank
That's
you.
over.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.